take care of our temple because God resides in us. It's sacred. It's holy because God made us. He lives in us. And He's the one that made us that way. So with those teachings, let's go now to Matthew chapter 16. And we're going to take a look at what Jesus said to His disciples and something that He tells us today about becoming the biggest losers. In Matthew 16, starting in verse 21, it says, "From that time on, Jesus began to explain to His disciples that He must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, chief priests, and teachers of the law, and that He must be killed, and on the third day be raised to life." In verse 21 there's a huge thing that happens in Jesus' ministry. It's a huge turning point that takes place. Because Jesus had done everything up until this point to show people and show His disciples that He really was the Christ and the Messiah. He was the chosen one of God. And He was revealing Himself to them in miracles, in teachings, in signs, and all these wonders, these wonderful things that He was doing. He was proving by His actions that He was the Messiah, the one that everybody had been waiting for. But at this point in His ministry, it's beginning to change. From just showing and telling people that He's the Messiah to explaining what the Messiah must do. And He explains that the Messiah, that He must suffer, He must be handed over, that He must be killed, and then He must be raised to life. So how do you think the disciples responded to this? You know, Jesus had been with them a while. Jesus had done all these great things. And now Jesus says, guys, I'm going to Jerusalem. I'm going to be handed over. I'm going to suffer. And guys, I'm going to die. And I'll be raised again. How do you think the disciples responded? Woo! Go Jesus! That's great! Man, awesome! Suffer! Suffer! Can you imagine if somebody said, guys, I'm going and I'm about to die. And I'm not just going to die, but I'm going to suffer. And I'm going to this place, and when I go to that place, that city, that's what they're going to do to me in that city. But I'm choosing to go to that city anyway. Look what Peter, one of Jesus' disciples, said. And most likely Peter is speaking on behalf of all the disciples here. But Peter said to Jesus, it says, Peter took Him aside and began to rebuke Him. "Never, Lord," he said, "this shall never happen to you." What if Peter would have had his way? What if he would have said, "That's it, guys, time up, we're going that way. We're not going to Jerusalem, we're going up north. Time up, let's go." Because you are not going to do that, Jesus. Never, ever, ever. And Jesus, don't ever say that again. So Jesus turned and said to Peter, what do you think Jesus is going to say? Let's see. "Get behind me, Satan." That's a pretty strong word. Why would Jesus call one of His disciples this? The one that loved Him. Peter was the one that was always out in front. And now Jesus is saying, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the things of God, but the things of men." You do not have in mind the things of God, but the things of man. If Peter would have had his way, you and I wouldn't have been here today. We would have been lost. We would have been trying to find our own way. If Peter would have had his way, Jesus would have never gone to Jerusalem, suffered and died and raised again. So who was Peter thinking like? Was he thinking like God? Of course not. Was Peter doing a good thing? we think we're doing good. And we may actually be doing a good thing. But we always have to test it with, God, is this your will or is it Joey's? God, is this what you want? It may be a good thing, but God, is this what you want? So guys, we took a look at train ourselves to be physically healthy and spiritually strong. Now we need to discipline ourselves to think more like God and less like humans. Discipline ourselves. And it's a discipline. It's a discipline of saying, God, not my will, but your will be done. God, not what I want, but what you want. And it's saying it every day and meaning it. So Jesus says, get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block. You're going to stop me from doing what God wants. You do not have in mind the things of God, but the things of men. So guys, we must discipline ourselves to think more like God and less like us. Jesus, it goes on to say that Jesus taught his disciples. This was a very teachable moment for his disciples. So let's take a look at how Jesus used this teaching to teach his disciples in Matthew 16:24. Jesus said to his disciples, if anyone would come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Let's stop there. If anyone would come after me, who wants to follow after Jesus? That's all of his disciples. That's us. We want to. Well, Jesus is about to tell us what it's going to take. He must deny himself. You know what that means? Deny yourself? It means disassociate yourself with your own interests. Turn away from what you want and turn to what God wants. Deny yourself. You know when it was also used, when this was used, deny, the word deny, what did Peter do to Jesus? When Jesus was arrested, Peter denied even knowing the man. He's saying, I disassociate myself. I want nothing to do with him because I don't even know him. Who is that guy? Peter didn't want anything to do with Jesus when Jesus was arrested and about to be crucified. So Jesus is saying, deny yourself. It's not about me. If you want to follow Jesus, it's not about you any longer. Deny himself and take up his cross. Now, how did the disciples hear that? The cross. We know how we hear it. We know Jesus died on the cross. We wear beautiful jewelry with crosses. Many of you probably have that today. The cross is beautiful. But in Jesus' day, it was the form of an execution. I've heard somebody say it's like us wearing an electric chair charm around our neck. Why would you wear an electric chair charm around your neck? It's craziness. But as Christians, we know that the cross symbolizes God's love for us. So that's why we wear it. It's a great symbol. But realize the way Jesus' disciples heard it was this. That it was public execution and public shame. And when Jesus says, take up your cross, what he's saying is, be prepared to die for me publicly if you're going to follow me. And not just die publicly, but to die publicly in great shame. Anybody want to sign up for that? Jesus says, if anyone would come after me, he must deny himself, your own self-interest, say, no longer me, I'm going to follow God's plan.